Deep in the Amazon jungle, a stone chamber lay hidden beneath centuries of earth and vines. A team of explorers stood before it, their faces pale in the flickering torchlight. Inside the chamber, undisturbed for 500 years, a sarcophagus slept. It was covered with strange glyphs and symbols, each one a warning to those who dared disturb the slumber within. But curiosity and the lure of discovery burned brighter in the explorers' eyes than any fear of the unknown. With trembling hands, they began to pry open the lid of the coffin. A musty wind rushed out, carrying with it the scent of decay and dust. And as the lid creaked open, the explorers gasped. For within the sarcophagus, wrapped in ancient cloth, lay a figure whose flesh had turned as black as night and was cracked like dry earth. The god of shadows had awakened. As if sensing their presence, the being slowly unfurled, its form coalescing from the darkness. Its eyes, two burning embers in the gloom, fixed on the explorers. A low growl rumbled in its chest, echoing the rumble of distant thunder. It pushed back the millennia of slumber and stretched, its joints cracking like bones in a funeral pyre. With a final, earth-shattering roar, it rose fully, its shadow falling over the explorers like a shroud. Panic seized them. Torches were dropped, sending sparks flying in the darkness. One explorer stumbled back, his foot catching on a root. He fell, his scream swallowed by the cavern. Others scrambled for the opening, their cries echoing in the vast space. But the god of shadows moved with a speed that belied his bulk. He loomed over the fallen explorer, his face inches from the man's. The explorer looked up, his eyes wide with terror. In the dim light filtering through the cave opening, he saw not the rotting corpse he expected, but a creature of nightmare. Its skin was the color of dried blood, stretched taut over sharp angles. Its eyes glowed like hot coals, and its teeth were long and sharp as obsidian blades. The god of shadows let out a guttural snarl and plunged his hand into the earth. Jagged rocks shot skyward, impaling the explorer where he lay. His last scream died in his throat, and the god of shadows turned back to the others. They were still struggling to find the entrance in the pitch black, their cries of fear and pain music to his undead ears. He raised his hand again, and this time a wall of solid rock shot up, sealing off their escape. Trapped, the explorers huddled together, their terror palpable in the darkness. The god of shadows approached, his steps silent despite his size. He loomed over them, his breath hot and fetid on their faces. One of the explorers, a woman with fiery red hair, stepped forward. She wasn't as brave as she wanted to appear, but fear for her companions spurred her on. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice shaking. The god of shadows regarded her for a moment, his eyes burning into her soul. Then he spoke, his voice a raspy whisper that seemed to slither through the darkness. "I am the god of shadows," he hissed, "and this realm is mine. You have trespassed in my domain, and now you shall pay the price." The explorers cried out, their pleas echoing in the vast chamber. But the god of shadows was unmoved. With a gesture, he unleashed a wave of pure darkness that slammed into them, enveloping them in an inky blackness that sucked the very light from their souls. Screams tore through the chamber as the explorers' minds were pierced by needles of shadow. Then, just as suddenly, the darkness lifted. The explorers lay on the ground, their bodies racked with pain. Their minds reeled, struggling to comprehend what they had seen and survived. But the god of shadows was not finished with them. He advanced on them, his eyes blazing with power. "You have disturbed my slumber and defiled my realm," he boomed, his voice echoing with the weight of millennia. "For that, I shall punish you." The explorers cowered before him, their terror making them weak and small. They could do nothing as the god of shadows loomed over them, his shadow engulfing them completely. The last thing they saw was the cruel twist of his lips and the glint of triumph in his eyes. When they awoke, it was to a world of darkness. Their eyes, burned by the god of shadows' power, could not pierce the gloom. They were trapped in a pocket of perpetual night. their only company the whispers of their own fear. Days turned into weeks, and the explorers, driven mad by the endless night, began to turn on one another. Hope flickered and died in their eyes, replaced by the dull gleam of despair. The god of shadows had woven a prison of darkness around them, and even their strongest wills were slowly being broken by the unending gloom. In the heart of this darkness, the god of shadows reveled, his power growing with each passing moment. His essence was darkness, and what was darkness but the absence of light? And what was light without hope? Then, one night, a new sound reached the explorers' ears. It was a whisper at first, then a murmur, growing louder until it was a roar. A tremor shook the darkness, and the explorers clung to each other, their faces drained of all color. From the depths of the darkness, a figure emerged. It was tall and slender, its form wreathed in a brilliant light that pierced the gloom like a beacon. As it stepped forward, more figures appeared, each one radiating a different color of light, hope, courage, love, and will. The god of shadows sensed the disturbance in his domain. He turned, his eyes blazing with rage, and saw the explorers, their forms outlined by the intruding light. With a roar of anger, he unleashed a wave of darkness at the newcomers, seeking to drive them back into the shadows. But the beings of light stood firm. Their leader, a woman with flowing white robes, raised her arms and light flared around her. "Be gone, foul creature," she commanded, her voice ringing with power. "You have held these souls captive long enough." The god of shadows snarled, his eyes flashing with hatred. "This realm is mine," he spat, "and you shall not trespass here." "You are a relic of the past," the woman replied, her voice echoing with light, a shadow clinging to existence, afraid of the dawn. "Surrender your hold over these souls and return to the darkness from whence you came." The god of shadows hesitated. The light was a threat to his very essence, and yet he knew he could not defeat it. With a final, frustrated snarl, he retreated back into the darkness, dragging the explorers with him. They found themselves back in the chamber where their ordeal had begun. The sarcophagus lay shattered, its dark secrets spilled across the floor. But the explorers were no longer prisoners. The beings of light stood before them, their forms radiant in the gloom. "Come," said the woman with flowing white robes, "you are free from his grasp, and the dawn awaits." One by one, the explorers rose, blinking against the dim light filtering through the cave opening. As they stepped out of the chamber, they could feel the god of shadows' presence watching them, a malevolent spirit trapped in the darkness. But as they emerged from the cave and into the sunlight, they knew they were truly free. The jungle around them buzzed with life, the trees swaying in the gentle breeze. Birds sang, insects hummed, and the explorers breathed deeply, feeling the warmth of the sun on their skin. They had faced the god of shadows and lived to tell the tale. Now, with the help of the beings of light, they had to find a way to seal the gateway to the shadow realm forever. They knew that if the god of shadows was not stopped, he would continue to grow in power, eventually spilling into the world and bringing darkness to all. Their quest would be perilous, but the explorers were no longer the fearful, bickering group that had entered the jungle. They had faced their fears and survived, and in doing so, they had found strength and courage they never knew they possessed. With the dawn breaking over the jungle, the explorers set out on their mission, determined to banish the god of shadows back to the darkness from whence he came. The fate of light and darkness hung in the balance, and only the explorers stood between the world and eternal night.